We are back in session after our break. Next item, Mr. Wood.
Okay. The next fund is the Fire Districts Fund. And again, I give you some background information on that and talk about the statute that falls under. And as y'all recall, the way this works is each fire district board submits to you a budget and a recommended tax rate that they want to see. As far as this year, if you look at the next page after the notes, there are two fire districts that are requesting a change in their tax rate. Elroy is requesting a decrease from 6.5 cent to 6.25 cent. So obviously we want to do that.
You go, Elroy.
The next one is Paytown, and they're requesting an increase from 5 cent to 6.25 cent. And as you'll see, they don't have much of a tax base, so they're requesting that additional money. They had requested some last year. We did not do that, but I think that was a much larger amount. I'm recommending that you approve this one.
Yeah, and I think they had some operational issues that they
Yeah.
were a little ahead.
And also their tax rate for year was one of the lower ones in the county. So, I mean, this one is justifiable.
Yeah.
I agree.
So those are the only changes from last year. Does anybody have any questions there? As you look through each one, we give them to you in the order they show there. We have call volumes, just like we did last year. So if you'd like to see what the activity level is for each department, that's included in there.
Okay.
All right? And it's a fairly lengthy part of the budget, but that's because we got 25 or 26 of them.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions on that?
And just, Joe, you can help us out here. The call volume, does that include mutual aid calls or just actual calls of their own?
Mutual aid also.
Also, okay, all right.
Okay. Any questions on fire districts? And as y'all know, we have a contract with each one. We went through last year and redid all the contracts, so all of that is behind us. We'll be using the same contract this year as we did last year. So I think all of that's squared away. The next one, these funds are actually new in the budget because, as y'all recall, we did the street lights this year. So I've given you a write-up on the street lighting special assessment district funds, explained the background there, the state statute and all of that. And so what we have now is we have SLSA stands for Street Light Special Assessment. So we have 3 districts, Ashby Hills, Buck Run, and Falling Brook. I've given you some information at the bottom. Ashby Hills has 61 lots, currently has an annual assessment of $49.80. The recommended rate for calendar year 2016 is $50.62. So that's a slight increase based on, I believe we had one light that we were not aware of. There was some change in there, so we're going up slightly there. The other 2 are down. Buck Run with 51 lots has an annual assessment of $88.80. This year, we're recommending you take that down to $73.12. Falling Brook is at 48. We're recommending you take that down to 47.02. And with that, I think the rates will be stable. As y'all recall, when we first did them, we had to make sure that we had enough to cover everything. And we did have some issues with 1 or 2 lights in some of them, and that could, depending on if they're small, that could affect the rate. So I think with these we'll be good going forward. And like I said, 2 of them are decreases. Okay. Does anybody have any questions on those? Pam has set them up as individual funds so that, you know, we're able to track it within each fund as to whether they build up any fund balance or not. The write-up is in the front of the first one, but it applies to all of them as far as the state statute and that sort of thing. Explains the process. So if any citizen should come to you about wanting to do a street light petition or whatever, you can refer to this sheet because it kind of gives you a synopsis of what's the process to go through.
Mr. President,
I have
or
a
Mr.
question,
Mayor.
just a matter of information. Was it Morgan Trace? Was that,
They never got enough
They never-
signatures.
they never got enough? They only like 4, didn't they? Is that correct?
He never came back with the,
I'm gonna follow up on that. I forgot about that, really.
Okay.
Because I know some people that live out there, and they wanted the lights, but they
Right.
may not have enough
Right.
to get it. There's not a limitation on the time limit here, is
No,
that
because
correct?
he hasn't submitted it.
Right,
So
but I'm saying there's not, there's,
No.
if
People
they do
come-
it 6 months from now, it's okay.
They can come in
right?
at any time.
Okay.
And we'll go through the same process we went with the others.
Okay, all right,
But you
thank you.
would make sure that if somebody signed it early on and it's sold, you need a current owner, not previous.
Okay,
That's a good
all
point. I
right,
hadn't thought about that.
yeah. Okay.
Okay, so then you have Buck Run, and then you have Falling Brook, so that takes care of those 3. The next fund is the EMS fund. What's different about this fund this year is, as I told you, we've combined the non-emergency medical transport fund into this one. And what we're doing here, the biggest issue here is that we have a number of ambulances that have quite a bit of age on them. So we were faced with the decision of how many of these do we need to replace? And so what we're trying to do here is get those caught up, but obviously that's a large amount of money in 1 year. So what we're recommending you do is you phase these in using a 59-month, that's the 5-year, but if you go 5 years, you got to get LGC approval. If you do 59 months, you don't. So what we're recommending is that you issue $785,473 of installment purchase agreements, and that will help pay for this. So we have 2 issues here that you'll see in here. One is the ambulances. The other thing is we have, I believe it's 12 heart monitors for the ambulances, and what we're trying to do there is replace those. But we're doing some of them.
And my understanding is the reason we replaced them, they've actually aged out. I mean,
That's correct.
I mean, it's not that they're not working, but they've aged out, and the technology is changed so much, because those units are several years old.
7 to 8 years old.
Yeah.
That's right.
All right. This is the meat of it. You're speaking of $785,000 worth of ambulances?
Yeah, you're talking about 1 new one, and, 4 new ones and 1 you're gonna remount.
4 new and 1
One
remount.
remount.
And we have a total in the fleet of how many?
I think it's 11 or 12. I've got it on my sheet.
And did we replace 2 of those last year?
You remounted 2, yeah.
2 last year.
And so what has happened, and I can show you that replacement sheet I've got.
Oh, you got that under your,
I don't have the replacement sheet with me. I didn't give you that, but what we've developed, just so y'all know, is a sheet that shows each piece of rolling equipment, when it was purchased, how many miles are on it, the estimated miles each year, and so when the estimated life would be. And the problem we have in these is that quite a few of them are aging out.
The ones that's aging out, hadn't, Joe, you have thought of here, part of them has already been remounted, correct?
Yeah, I'll help you out. You probably got 22 or so in the fleet, which includes the front line, 9 stations.
Yeah.
Then you got some backup that volunteer groups use from time to time. And then you got some spares just to back up. Then you got the Wayne Net fleet coupled into it as well.
Right.
So traditionally, we've taken the older models, remount them, and then as they age out, pass them out to Wayne Net. That's traditional what we've done.
And we're continuing to do that,
And-
because she actually asked for new ones, and I declined that, because of what Joe's saying there, is the new should go in the ambulance fleet, and then they trickle down.
We just try to be conscious of the Wayne Net, because they do go out of town to distant trips from time
They've got to
time.
have a couple that's in. I mean,
Real, yeah, they'd be real
I'm
good
not-
shape.
I'm not saying that
Yeah,
what
and
they've got are the dogs in the fleet.
Right.
But like Joe says, they They take some quite long
Right.
trips sometimes, and
Well,
they
they're-
have
they're-
some decent equipment too.
They're the best of what we replace. It's kind of like what, we're doing the same thing in the sheriff's fleet, is when we take some of these patrol vehicles out of service, we'll run them through with process servers, people like that, that they're no longer emergency response, but they still put a lot of miles on them, just serving civil papers.
And if you look at the fleet running around, you see those, the main color for what we have is either the gray or the teal green, I guess. So if you see these other colors, they're ambulances that we absorbed during the merger in 2002. So they're 12, 13 years old at best. And when we got them in 2002, they were already aged some from the previous volunteer rescue squad. So they're getting some age on them, and probably
Well, I mean, somebody mentioned something that, volunteers, we still have volunteers in the county?
Yeah.
we have a couple, three groups of them that primarily.
What is that?
Rescue squads.
Well, I know that, but I mean, where are they located?
Mount Olive, I think, still has.
Mount Olive, Fremont,
Grant.
Grant from Seven Springs.
Seven Springs and
Is-
more or less, Goldsboro. more or
And
less.
that's really, if you want, that's a discussion for today.
Okay.
I mean,
Because we still cover workers' comp coverage on those volunteer rescue squads each year.
Yeah.
Are we providing the ambulance though?
Yes,
We do. We
So-
provide the ambulance and the
and
work.
supplies on ambulance too.
But I agree with the chairman. I think we need to have a
And
discussion.
A replacement schedule would be appropriate now, and I think that's the direction we're trying to get, because back in 2007, 8, 9, with the economic downturn, we all kind of froze spending and buying, and kind of cut back on the number of ambulances that purchasing.
And so what I'm trying to do here, Joe's exactly right. What I'm trying to do here is take the spike out of this replacement schedule. Then we'll get back on a normal replacement cycle. And the way I'm doing that is I'm gonna finance these over a 5-year period. And that'll take the spike out of this.
So are you telling me I won't have heartburn next year on this amount of money?
Well, I can't guarantee that you won't have heartburn, but it won't be as bad.
but if you do have heartburn, you have to go to the hospital, you have.
Good at that.
Do we, the old Wayne nets, when we age those out, do we sell those?
At that point, yeah, because they've been.
Where's the money go? Does it go back to the?
Well, that's just, when that money is spent, I mean, that money would go back into this fund.
That's my question.
Because it's sale of assets, so it's a revenue source for this fund.
Well, if we're putting 4 new ones in service, there ought to be 4 of them coming out the other end, I would imagine.
Well, yeah, because that's right, because one's a remount, 4 new, and 2 of these would go to NEMT because she requested 2. And then probably what would happen is those 4 would be in better shape than what she's got, so we'd probably end up moving all 4 into NEMT and retiring older units out of it, is what we'd probably have.
Right.
And then when you retire those, going back to Bill's comment, then we'd look at a surplus sale.
That may reduce your heartburn a little bit.
Well, I mean, you ought to be able to get something out of them. I mean,
Yeah.
gosh, things are expensive.
Well, they are. That's why the remounts, I mean, you have a very good program, you've been doing it for years, and most counties do it, is remounting the boxes, because the chassis, that gets worn out, the engine gets worn out, but those boxes, if they're taken care of, they can go a number of remounts.
And then going with the heart monitors. Now, I believe we replaced 2.
You've replaced 1 this year.
One this year.
And so we're gonna do 5 here and then 5 next year. He wanted all 12. And we didn't do all 12.
You won't have to use them today, huh?
Right, that's right.
And these have aged out, all 12?
Yeah.
They're about 7 to 8 years old, and the replacement schedule about 5 years on that.
Here's the other thing you gotta remember about this, is you really do want them on identical monitors, because our people are trained on this. And so you wanna make sure that when they get ready to do it, they don't have to sit there and think about, well, which of 4 models is this? You see what I'm saying?
I do.
Okay. So, I mean, ideally, I would have liked to have gotten all 12.
What is the average lifespan of these monitors?
Usually 5-year schedule, but we've got some that are 7 or 8 years old now.
So,
So every 5 years, you've got to replace them.
well,
In theory,
in theory, but if we've been able to get 7 or 8 years out of them,
Yeah, I think
we're gonna
5
go with
years,
longer.
that's just the industry model.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Basically
It's about like they tell you to change your oil every 3,000 miles.
Right.
but you can go 5.
Yeah.
Computers the same way. People,
Okay.
you know, they'll say 2 or 3 years, and we get 5,
Well,
6.
those are major expenses, though. that
Well, they
we have
are.
to
They
hopefully
are.
have in some type of a schedule so that we,
That's
are
exactly
prepared.
why we did this vehicle spreadsheet, because because this has less units than the sheriff, but each one of these is a big ticket. The sheriff's patrol fleet is a big ticket. And so, you know, what I wanted was to have some sort of spreadsheet where we've got, and what we do is we take it off of the fixed asset list. So we've picked up everything we own. And then we're looking at where's the useful life on that, and then we go from there. And the thing to remember is, when we buy something new, we typically are getting it under state contract, so we're saving money there. We haven't paid sales tax on it. So we're ahead of the game there. Then if you use it for as long as you can, where we can, we take those used cars and feed them through the fleet where we can use them. And we have a number of people that drive used vehicles. And I was telling you about the civil process and people like that. Then you finally go to the surplus sale. So the fact that we take a patrol car out doesn't mean we're going to immediately turn around and sell it. It means we're going to make other use of it, get another 2 or 3 years out of it, and then we're going to sell it.
I'll wait for another day on that. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. All right, the medical transport is down 7,000 because of gas being down. Capital outlay is down considerably. The only item is a striker stretcher. Okay. And that's basically it. The next page, we do give you, also, this is new, we're giving you the response volume per agency on that. And so he's breaking that down by station, which we thought was interesting because, as you can see, depending on which station you work at, there's quite a bit of activity. So one of the things Jeremy and Tommy are looking at is rotating some of these crews out, which I think we already do, but we're going to look into that more closely, because if you're a paramedic or EMT, if you don't get a lot of calls, your skills can get rusty. And if you got a high volume call, you can burn them out. So you want to kind of, feather those out a little bit.
Let's clarify something up also. It's got down at the bottom, Wayne Net, 22. That's actual calls that was EMS calls that they took as a backup.
Yeah, they were.
I mean, that's the reason that number's so low.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is not their call.
The next page has Wayne Net transport.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
This is when they were backing up to the EMS for the 911.
That's right. That's right.
Because it could be a DOA call on a wreck or something.
Right.
Question, stations 4, 5, and 6, where are they located?
4 is in the Jeffries building, 6 is Madison, 5 Pinewood.
5 is Pinewood.
Yeah.
Where's
There's so
3?
much higher, I just was wondering the location.
Yeah, 4 is Jeffries, 5 is Pinewood, 6 is on Madison.
Okay. Any other questions? Like Tommy said, the next page shows the Wayne Net transports.
Could I possibly get you to give us another sheet there that tells us what Station 1 is and its location and that type of
Sure.
thing, or is it in here? I mean, Station 1 may mean something to you, but it don't mean anything to me.
So that's my point.
Well, and in looking at it, I mean, Station 1 is actually getting 623 responses, where some of these are getting 3,300.
Yeah, and like Station 4, 3,300, that's the station in the city, and Station 1 is out, I can't remember if that's Rosewood or
Grantham.
Grantham.
Grantham?
The thing you have to remember is kind of like fire departments. You look only at the call volume and you say, we should be able to do something about that. But what these are really, remember that you're looking at distance and mile time to cover distance. In other words, Grantham may not have many calls, but you really couldn't do something about that station, because if you did, when you did go to a call, the time would be exorbitant.
I understand.
So we rotate those crews. They do 3 months in the city and 3 months in the county, and like that, we try to
What-
break it up.
What number is Seven Springs?
7.
What?
I think it's
One.
So Station 1 is Seven Springs.
Not Grantham.
I thought you said it was Grantham.
I'm sorry, 3 is Grantham.
Okay. 3 is Grantham.
So they're both low.
It's Grantham. What's two?
Rosewood.
We'll get you a list of those. We can just stick it in the front there. Okay, any questions about Wayne Net and their call volume? So if you look at the second page under Wayne Net, the total net EMS transports is 6,167. Okay?
It's what, okay, 61, 67.
Right. Now, the only thing I want to say about the operating budget, just to remind you that this is the one where we've combined Wayne Net with EMS. So that's why it looks bigger, but they're still split out. The revenues and expenditures are still split out, so we can track it.
I have a question. Is Wayne Net still supporting Gateway, filling in when needed?
Well, I mean, they would, but I don't think we've had the issue that we've had.
I don't think it's anything like it was.
Like it was? Okay.
Okay. Solid Waste Disposal Fund, this is an enterprise fund.
Excuse me, let me go back to EMS. Let me make sure I'm understanding. This year, you are combining Wayne Net,
You had them in two separate funds.
right?
We're putting them together in one fund, because there's no reason to, have multiple funds when you don't need them.
I thought Wayne Net was established as almost like an enterprise
They
fund.
both are.
Oh, they're both of
They
them?
both are.
Okay.
And so we're just combining them into one enterprise fund. And, but the revenues are segregated, the expenditures are segregated. So if you want to know, well, how much are we having to subsidize Wayne Net, how much are we having to subsidize EMS, we can give that to you very
All right, so
quickly.
it'll be separate, still separate?
Yeah.
All right, the other thing is, from what I understood, you actually have a cap in regards to what you can charge for ambulance service.
On
Is that-
Medicare and Medicaid rates, yeah.
Well, also, I'm sure the insurance carriers.
Yeah, there are
Yeah,
contract
there's-
liables
Yeah.
on your primary care.
What about Wayne Net? Are you under some
Same.
caps?
Same thing.
So you're under caps there as well? So both of them under caps?
And your collection rate a little better with Wayne Net than it is EMS.
Yeah, and we have, the Wayne Net now, they can pay on the truck. They've got a card swipe and, yeah. And then we have,
When did that happen?
we did that
Recently.
6 months ago, probably.
Well, that's a great idea. I mean, I think the more we can use technology and using credit cards and debit cards, swiping.
You get the money before the trip.
Well, that's right. You get it on the front end.
Yeah.
You need to make it easy for a man to pay you.
That's right.
And then
But
we
if
have,
you can do that on Wayne Net, that's gonna be kinda hard to do on the EMS.
Yeah,
I don't want to swipe the card if I'm having a heart attack.
one is,
Hold on just a minute. Let's get a wallet out here.
yeah, there is a difference between
There's a
emergency
big
and non-emergency.
Well, that's true. Okay.
Tell me about the refusals, the net refusals. What does that mean?
if they refuse transport.
So they've already gone out there, but the patient refuses?
Or it could be they were being discharged from the hospital and they had somebody take them home and didn't need Wayne Net or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's ridiculous to listen to the radio traffic sometimes on the EMS side, on the refusals. I mean, they're called, and then when you get there,
They don't want to go.
they won't go. That's a pretty high percentage too.
All right, we'll let you go.
Okay. Solid Waste Disposal Fund, again, this covers the landfill and also all of the convenience sites. This is an enterprise fund, so it's self-supporting. I go into some detail about all of that and what our fee structure is, so I'd encourage you to read all of that. That's a good overview of how it's set up. Under the notes, salaries and wages have increased due to increasing the site attendance pay to a minimum of $8.25. We had some making $7.25 and $7.34 an hour was the preponderance, and that's too low. And we were having issues of getting people and then retaining them. So $8.25 is not a bad rate on that. The other additional cost is to employ a recycling materials handler. Several of us went out and looked at that. Tim is convinced that we can do more recycling and that it'll pay for itself. And I would invite those of you who haven't been, we need to go out one day and let us show you the electronic recycling that we're doing. Then that's really what's driving this. And we can do more. And so he feels like it'll pay for itself.
It's just a matter of time when we'll be forced to do more.
That's right. But I really would like to set up a day, because I think y'all need to see that operation out there. If you haven't been out there, there's far more to it than it looks like.
I suppose I'm going to show my ignorance here, but do we have I'm going to call it a concrete or masonry grinder out there that actually grinds?
No,
We bring one in.
we bring one in
So we are going to go
periodically.
there. I think that's a great idea.
And that's why, like I said, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but Tommy and I recently went out there. And, when I first came, I saw part of it, but I didn't have time to see it all. It would really be worthwhile after one of our meetings where we have a light agenda to have that set up with Tim. I think you would be very pleased with the operation out there.
Just to see how self-supporting they are.
Well, my understanding is that actually is ground up. You can use it for field.
Yeah.
That's
They
right.
use it for their roads.
To build the roads.
Oh,
They use
roads.
build it for their access roads.
Oh,
Yeah.
good
So,
enough.
I mean,
That's one of the departments that, the squeaking wheel gets the grease.
Yeah.
Well, that wheel don't squeak.
no, it
I mean,
doesn't.
that's,
They have their own maintenance staff. I mean, they do all their own
Yeah.
service and stuff.
Is there any company in Wayne County out does that same or similar type delivery,
On,
recycling, concrete and
I
stuff?
think this is a local company, but I don't recall who it is. Jim.
I know one time there was one talking about establishing out towards the east side of town. I didn't know.
Yeah.
All of them.
I can't remember the company name, but he brings him in periodically. And I believe it's a Wayne County company, but I can't swear to that. Okay, so that explains the salaries. Professional services increased $52,000. That's because we've got to go through the periodic North Carolina DENR re-permitting process. And that, like I said here, every 5 years. Non-capital equipment decreased $18,500 because we did computers last year, but none this year. He's decreased gas by $66,000 due to lower prices. M&R equipment, I cut it too much last year, and I'll fess up to that. So the increase really puts it back to the 2016 level. Capital outlay equipment, now he's doing a significant amount of equipment. But everything out there costs big money. This is huge equipment out there. And on some of these, even when he buys it used, it's still a big price ticket. So we need a replacement excavator, replace 2 compactor boxes, replace the bush hog, the mower, the plasma cutter. This material handler replaces several pieces of equipment, and he's going to try to go after a grant on that. And then the welder unit. On the vehicles, there's some pickup truck replacements and then an equipment trailer. And then this last one, I wanted to talk with you a little bit. $75,000 to install 3 compactor boxes to crush plastics for hauling. I'd like to read through this explanation here. The 3 compactors should pay for themselves in less than 2 years. The loose plastics in a current container weigh about 1,500 pounds. Compacted, the same trailer can handle 16,000 pounds. That's nearly 11 times the weight per trip. It would allow us to cut back 9 of the 10 trips per month. That will save about $12,960 per year per container, not counting the mileage and wear and tear on our equipment. That's a savings of $38,880 annually. In addition, this is eligible for a $20,000 one-time state grant. So within 2 years, even if you don't get the grant, the equipment will have paid for itself. Where we want to get to is, we're starting off with 3. We want to make sure that it's working out like we think it's going to work, and then we want to do a few each year till we get all of our convenience sites with this. Because if you think about it, we're transporting an awful lot of air. When you take a milk jug, you know, you may fill the container up, volume-wise it's full, but in terms of weight, we're just carrying an enormous amount of air. So the compactor compresses that, you get 10 times more of the actual weight per trip.
I mean, we're already doing it with cardboard.
Right.
And I think one thing that is playing into this is the procedure has changed on the plastic, where we used to have to separate it into different grades, a
Right.
little number on the bottom. You don't have to do that anymore. Everything goes in the same bin, and so it's going to be much easier.
Right.
You know, by having two different grades, it would have been very difficult using the same box to. So there's several things that has played into this too.
That's right. And the good thing about this is then on the third year, we're saving the $38,880 every year on these, every three of these. So what I would like to do is phase them in over a period of years and get these things throughout all of our convenience sites. But I'd like to use these three and make sure it's going to do what we think it's going to do. The other thing is, if you stage them, you can go back and ask for another grant. So, anybody got any questions on that? That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, I
about
don't see any here where we're buying that crusher that we're speaking of, the concrete.
You rent it.
You rent it?
We bring him in several times a year. That's why I'd
Okay,
like
so
to go
you
out.
just have it
We have a
dumped
we have a
and
storage area out there.
Okay.
And they bring it in, leave it out there, and then about every 90 to 120 days, he brings the guy in.
Okay.
He grinds it up, and then we've got a stockpile there, and then when they need to build their roads,
The volume's not enough to justify us on
No.
anymore.
Yeah, okay.
Plus, you know.
Unless it picked up. so-
Right, unless it picks up.
Good enough.
okay, any questions there? Okay. Next one's the sewer fund, and I give you some background information on this. I'd encourage you to read it, because this talks about our contract with Goldsboro. Basically, what we've got is a 20-year contract dated March of 2000, which means in 2020, we'll be renegotiating that. But essentially, the way that works is they've guaranteed up to 400,000 gallons per day of treatment capacity in Goldsboro's wastewater treatment plant. We agreed to pay their prevailing rate for an outside the city user who has not purchased reserve capacity at that point. We later came along, paid them some money, and then 250,000 gallons, we paid a capacity fee of $3.39 per gallon. Then the monthly rate was changed to prevailing outside the city customer that has purchased reserve capacity. So our monthly fee went down, okay? The other thing I want you to be aware of is that the city bills in 100 cubic feet. We do everything, and most people do it in 1,000 gallons. So we have to convert that, and the conversion factor is 7.5 gallons. So what I've given you there is our rate from them is $4.12 per 100 cubic feet. But when you convert that, that equates to $5.49 per 1,000 gallons. Okay, so every 1,000 gallons that goes through our system and goes over to that wastewater treatment plant is costing us $5.49. Okay. The county has an infiltration and inflow problem. We've been working on it this year. We have cut down a lot of it. The facilities committee continues to work on that. As y'all recall, we had a company come in, do smoke testing. We then did TV lamping. We've probably lamped almost all of the system. And we came up, I believe it was with like 26 different issues we needed to address. All of those have been addressed. We have cut down on that flow, but we still have a significant I&I problem. And so the facilities committee continues to work on that, and we just need to continue to move forward with that. And we're aware of that, and we're moving forward with it. But the thing I want to stress is this I&I is so critical, because if, like last year, we found we had two areas where pipes were, we just had holes in them. Well, when that happens, when that water's going in, every 1,000 gallons costs us $5.49. So that's the reason you gotta get this I&I problem taken care of.
Can you tell me what the rate that we are charging our customers?
I believe it's $9.70.
$9.70?
So you're making, theoretically, you should be, if you didn't have the I&I, in other words, if you were able to bill for every 1,000 gallons you charge, you would be in extremely good shape.
When was the last time they increased the rate?
I don't know that.
It's been a while.
I mean, it's been years and years
Well,
and years.
and we may need,
and
we
everything
may
else
need
is-
to look at that. What, the reason I'm not recommending at this point is I want to see over the next 6 months or so if we can discover what some of this I&I is.
I understand, but
But at
2
some
years
point-
ago, I remember having this conversation.
That's right.
Let's wait. Last year, let's wait. Here we are the third year, let's wait. And it's very clear that if we're putting, if I'm reading this correct, $180,000 is appropriated from earnings.
Right.
That means that we're looking at a deficit of $180,000.
That's correct.
And I'd like to minimize that by some small increase in rate. At some point, it's going to happen.
All right. Well, let us do the math for you and tell you what that would generate.
All right, thank you.
Pam, will you make a note of that? Okay.
And like Mr. Wood said, there's been several, like we had manhole covers that were low grade. Had
Right.
manhole covers that was in the bottom of ditches.
That's right.
And
How does the 970 equate or to whatever the Goldsboro rate is, as an example?
We'll get you that.
Okay.
We'll do a comparison. Pam, will you make a note of that? as well?
We've had problems, well, we have worked through a lot of that.
oh, yeah,
I
Well,
think-
it's improved, but it's still high.
it's still way too high.
And I say that,
It
then,
doesn't cover our cost to Goldsboro.
do what?
Right now, it's not covering our cost to Goldsboro.
Right. Which
Because
tells
of
you.
the I&I.
Right.
Yeah, I did some calculation. If you go to the last page on here, I've got Goldsboro wastewater treatment plant charges decreased in 15 because of repairs. The charges in fiscal year 16 should decrease further as continued testing reveals still more problems that can be corrected. It's normal to have about 15% unaccounted for billing in a sewer system. In other words, you're never going to get rid of some of it, okay? But ours is still about 50%, so we're about 35% high. And given the billings from Goldsboro, that means our I&I problems are costing about $105,000 annually.
But I don't necessarily believe that it's I&I. Because we've gone through, we've smoke tested, we've made repairs, we've raised manholes, we've done the repairs. I think it's a matter, somebody is dumping water into our system.
We're going to be coming back to the facilities committee because we're looking at some additional things
Okay.
that we're looking at in terms of the billing. We're also looking at, you'd have to see the system maps. As y'all know, we're getting those. We're going to see where all the points are, where other systems dump into us. Because right now, we're paying on what they say their water meters are reading. What we're looking at is, do we need to put sewer meters on that flow coming in? Because if they've got I&I problems, they're dumping
They're
those
passing
I&I
through.
problems on us.
I mean, and you look at the map of the grid system out in that Genoa system, it's kind of like Chinese arithmetic. I mean, it's
That's right.
about 4 agencies dumping in, sharing lines, and it's a mess.
Well,
I mean,
it is, but the thing is, we're having to pick up the cost of it.
That's right. Well, and the thing about sewer, unlike a water treatment plant, you can turn it off. Sewer, it just keeps coming. And so, there is no cutoff valve.
It just keeps coming.
There's no cutoff valve, and if it hits our pipe, we're paying for it.
Okay.
And so we gotta do what we can to keep it from coming.
Yeah, let's not cut off the sewer.
And it does go downhill, just like everybody said.
This sounds like the main thing.
That was
Okay.
good, George.
Well, moving on before we go to lunch. The airport fund, again, I'll give you some background information on our hangars, talk about the fact that a lot of the capital projects there, and I want to emphasize this to you, a lot of those capital projects are 90-10. The federal government makes grants to the state of North Carolina, and then the state of North Carolina's Department of Transportation, they have a division of aviation, divvies out those grants. And so a lot of that, as you see things we're talking about doing in the CIP, we actually can get 90 cents on the dollar for a lot of those. So I just want to stress that to you. And some, I think like terminals, are 50-50, if I remember correctly, but the preponderance of them are 90-90. Okay.
Is that on you, or would it cover not really the maintenance, well, it would be maintenance too, like on the shade hanger, I mean.
I don't think it'll do that,
It won't.
because
So
that's really.
all of that expense is gonna be the brunt of the county.
That's right, that's right. But I've given you what we're trying to do there, the things we've included this year. And when we get into the CIP, I'll go over the details, because some of that, we're getting a lot of that money back on, okay? The next thing is workers' comp, and all of you know about that. We're self-insured on that. That fund is in good shape, and we didn't raise the rates. Everything should be fine there. Hospitalization is the one we're having problems with, and it's the utilization is up, and that just depends on how many illnesses and operations and things our employees and their dependents that we cover go through. You periodically have a statistically bad year, and this is our year. So it's much higher than we anticipated. That's why we were also looking at a premium increase going forward.
Do we have any answers on why it's increased so much? I mean, is it just accidents or?
It's a lot of utilization. The good thing is that with our broker, we'll be able to get quarterly reports, which we've been getting those from BB&T also. We'll get those, and we'll be able to analyze it. Now, what you can't do under HIPAA is talk about individuals, but
Right.
you can talk about categories, like cardiac arrest or hip replacement or things like that. So you can slice and dice the data and come up with what's causing it. Typically, in a plan like this, where you're having, the problem is that, we have a deductible of $100,000. So if somebody has a heart attack and it's $350,000, we're out $100,000. So it's not that you have one or two big claims, because you've got insurance against that. What really hurts us is where we have multiple claims, that are close to that 100,000 or are that 100,000. And I think that's what we're going to find we've got. But the utilization is definitely up in comparison to the two previous years.
Utilization.
Well, if they go, we got to pay. The next one is the new fleet management fund. I want to go over this a little bit with you. This doesn't require any new revenues. All this means is that where people have been going to a private garage before and paying for that, the funds we've set aside for vehicle and equipment maintenance there will go to pay these charges. And what we would do is we would mark up our parts 20% and charge $48 per hour or $12 per quarter hour for the labor. So what we're trying to do is ease into this. We started some last year, but we want to formalize it this year because all they've been charging is the parts, but we really need to get into the labor cost as well.
One of the key issues here is going to be is making sure that it's tracked right.
Correct.
That's
That's right.
Not with finance, but
No, we're going to have to. There's software that you buy for that. There's
Okay.
vehicle maintenance software, and the advantage is just what you said, Wayne. Every vehicle that goes in there, we'll be able to see the date and time, odometer reading, all that, and then what was done to it.
right. But still, again, the software is no better than the operator.
Going in.
You've got that software and that computer cannot generate anything if it's not
Put in right.
right.
That's right.
How many employees are you speaking of in that?
I think it was 3 or 4. Let me go back.
Probably 3. You got 104.
Go back to this position.
Oh, that's right, you did have a little thing there to many employees.
Yeah.
But we currently have employees
Well, you have,
in the facilities
you
that's
have
doing
one.
it. Okay,
One.
we have one. And we do have the facilities there for a garage.
Yeah, you have a three bay facility.
Okay.
Well, it's 3 garage door.
And that's located over there where the tower is.
Yes.
Okay.
Which tower? I mean, where's that?
Number 1 tower. Old College.
Oh, okay.
What I'd like to do is one day is take y'all over there and show you those facilities.
I didn't realize that we were doing that. I mean.
Where's that?
It's in the front.
Well, it's a couple of, at least 2 new employees that you'll be adding for that.
Yeah, it may be 3 because what Wayne's talking about, you gotta have a parts clerk, which is also the person doing the billing, putting the stuff into software.
The first tab on the left.
Of what?
Just first tab on the bottom,
Okay,
staffing levels.
yeah, that's it.
And we're fortunate enough to have enough parts suppliers in the county that we should have very little inventory. I mean,
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah, they'll deliver.
I mean, they deliver. I mean, they're fighting to get the business, so that, this is going to require very little inventory.
We have two fleet maintenance mechanics and 1 fleet maintenance supervisor, they're
Yes.
full-time.
That's what you've got in here? Yeah, okay.
And he will be capable of handling the software, and, you know,
Yeah.
actually, you're almost creating the department, aren't you?
Yes. And I'm trying to do it with as few people as I can.
Sure.
I will tell you, with the number of pieces of equipment we have, that may not be enough, but at the same time, we don't have to do all of it at one time. So we're kind of
We phase in.
moving into it.
And keep in mind now, solid waste does their own. I mean,
Yeah.
they've got big, large
That's right.
equipment, and this facility wouldn't be set up to handle anything in it. They do all theirs on site, so we're basically talking about pickup trucks and cars.
Well, we got a slew of them.
Lawnmowers and such as that.
Can we take about a 5-minute break?
Yes.
I've got a call I got to take.
Sure.
Yeah.